This story was found on reddit.com. I've always loved solo hiking. It was my way of disconnecting from the noise of everyday life and spending time alone in nature. I often ventured far from civilization, into places where there were no people and no cell service. But that hike became my last. That day, I had covered more ground than usual. The exhaustion hit me harder than I expected, so by around 8 in the evening, I'd already set up camp, put out the fire, and climbed into my tent. I'm a light sleeper, especially in the woods, so I always pitch my tent with the entrance within easy reach. As usual, I kept a knife beside me in case of unwelcome visitors, whether animals or people. I woke up suddenly. The silence was broken by a faint, barely audible sound. The zipper of my tent was slowly being opened. Instantly, every alarm bell in my head went off. I grabbed my knife and shouted that I was armed. There was no reply. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard rapid footsteps. Someone was running away from the tent. I sat there with the knife in my hand, tense beyond belief. Only a short amount of time passed, but it felt like an eternity. When everything finally went quiet, I decided not to tempt fate. I packed up my gear in a hurry and left without waiting for sunrise. Adrenaline kept me moving all night. The next morning, I learned from the news that a man's body had been found in the same forest, not far from where I had camped. He had been brutally murdered. It didn't look like a random incident. I immediately knew the killer had come to my tent that night. I went to the police to tell them my story. Naturally, I became a suspect. They questioned me for hours and searched my belongings, but in the end, they let me go. There was no evidence against me. Since then, I've never gone on a solo hike again. As I later found out, the killer was never caught. And sometimes I think that if I had been sleeping just a little more deeply that night, I might not be sitting here writing the story.